just gonna switch this.
Can you guys guess the typeface?
Oh.
It's really popular, it's used like everywhere. It's okay if you don't know.
No, not Arial.
It's too nice.
You might recognize the name, maybe not. Against the H.
George.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, what? What cup? Helvetica?
Helvetica.
Helvetica. Yeah. No, I wasn't hearing enough syllables for it to be help. I heard Helvetica.
So thank you guys for coming to.
Trivia, Helvetica is actually the Latin of Swiss. Like Swiss in Latin, it's Helvetica. Just putting it there. Alright, okay, let's start.
Okay, so this is our second design lecture, and we're going to be delving into more advanced topics in Illustrator. The first week was just a very basic introduction to like the user interface and some of the things you can do with Illustrator, like the pen tool.
Anyone of you guys was here last week? Raise up your hand, please. Okay, so
2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean 2 weeks ago.
Every 2 weeks.
So this design lecture is every 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, we actually discussed the first. So it was the first lecture. We discussed the basic of Illustrator. So just to recap, like a 5-minute recap of what happening last week. So we start to explain what does Illustrator do, what's the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop. So what we say is Illustrator is basically how do you create icons, how do you draw a basic stuff before you put it in Photoshop. So every basic design that you see, the traffic sign or like fonts or whatever shape that you have, that basically comes from Illustrator. One day, all designers out there, every design that you see right now, the logos or whatsoever, it comes through this program. So this is a very powerful engine that, we could definitely practice and use it. If you ask me whether you have Illustrator in your computer or something, Mugar actually have Adobe Illustrator in all the computers in Mugar. Or you can go to Com building. In the second floor, there are a lot of Macs. Everything is very complete over there. So if you don't have Illustrator or Photoshop in your computer, you can definitely go to Mugar or the Com building to use it. Okay?
Is it a torrent too?
Sorry?
Is it a torrent too?
Oh.
I'm probably not endorsing.
Yeah, technically yes.
Okay.
Minus. Okay, so last week we tried to do using pen tool. So pen tool is one of the most important tools in Illustrator. Pen tool is right here. Okay? This pen thing. This is called the pen tool. So that's Calvin will show the basic like what we did last week about pen tool and how to make shapes.
Yeah, so pen tool is like the basic tool of Illustrator that's the most important thing to learn. It allows you to draw vectors, which uses these points and handles and anchors to make shapes. So you can see that as you click and drag, you can create curves and different lines, and then you can close up at the end by clicking where you started, and it creates a shape. And then by selecting it, so these two tools up here are selection tools. The white mouse on the right allows you to edit the vectors that you just created, such as this. And the black tool just allows you to select the entire shape. We also went over the user interface. At the top right here, this secondary bar, it changes depending on what tool you have selected. So with the black mouse, you can see that you can change the color and the stroke of the shape. So for example, I'll change this to a blue, and then I'll change the border to a red. And you can just edit the shape from there, opacity, etc. So this is really helpful because the last lecture we went and traced over a Twitter logo, the Twitter logo, and it just shows you the flexibility that you have using the pen tool. You can do a lot of things, like you can illustrate and create buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah, so this lecture is basically actually like more advanced Illustrator. So if you actually have questions on like the basic, on the starting how to use Illustrator and everything, we have open hours. All JI, Android, Design, and iOS, we have open hours every Monday, 6 to 8. Okay, every Monday, 6 to 8 at the MCS building. And you're welcome to come, MCS 148. and we'll we'll put it down. You can check on the website, and then we can run through the basic. So for today, I think the first part we're gonna go through is the Pathfinder tool. Okay, so what is Pathfinder? It's such a cool name, but basically Pathfinder is dealing with two or more objects. Okay, you use the pen tool to draw like one shape, probably a circular or like a rectangle or whatever. But what if the shape is kind of like irregular, like a crescent moon? Okay, a crescent moon, you cannot look it up and like how you draw like singular curves and whatever. So we kind of we're gonna introduce you to this tool called Pathfinder to how to make like a crescent moon.
Yeah, Pathfinder is really good for making icons.
Just start by drawing the circle first.
Okay. So rather than drawing out the moon using pen tool, you can use the Pathfinder to help you with this. So first we're going to start off with the moon that we want. So we'll start off with the full moon, and then to create that shape, you can kind of visualize it. We'll create a secondary shape. So if you just like right here, this space right here can become the crescent moon using these two circles. So we want to highlight both of them, and then if you go to Window up here, you can select Pathfinder, and that will bring up this little window at the bottom. There are 4 different shape modes up here, which I'll go through. The first one is called Unite. So with these 2 shapes selected, if I click Unite, it will combine them into one shape, and then I'll do that. If you click minus front, this is actually how we're going to get the crescent moon, because the shape in the front is going to be subtracted from the shape that's behind it. You guys understand like the concept of layers in Illustrator and Photoshop? You have multiple layers that you can put shapes on. So if you click minus front, it'll take out that first shape completely, and you're left with this that you can select. The other ones depend on how you use them, but if you use intersect, that space that's between the overlapping circles right here gets to be the one that's remaining. And then exclude, I think it works better if you have colors involved. Yeah, so it just changes, it leaves the space that's outside overlapping shape. Over here at the bottom, there's the divide tool, and that can come in pretty handy because if you click divide, it basically breaks everything up into different segments that you can select. So that's pretty fun. These ones, trim, that takes out the border, merge, kind of like the unite tool. Those ones are not used as much. It's mostly the top 4 and then over here. So that's introduction to Pathfinder. There's an exercise that I can upload to Google Drive that I used in CFA when we were learning this, and it's basically just a very simple set of icons. Like last lecture, you can block that layer and then trace over it with the pen tool or make shapes and then use the Pathfinder to kind of get that result that's in the file. So that's it.
Yeah, so basically it's also like up for you to like experiment. Like, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of to remember. I don't expect you guys to remember what each of it does, but there's it's sort of like help you to know what it is. It's possible for you just to experiment and stuff, just to get what the shapes that you need.
Okay. The next thing we'll show you guys is the live trace tool, which can come in handy if you guys are dealing with logos, or if your like team doesn't have a logo that's in vector, you could use this depending on like how it's designed. I know for Angel Ed, it might be a little bit risky because there's some very complicated like logo illustration involved, but for something like Starbucks, this could be pretty good if all you had was an image file and not a vector.
Yeah, we're going to do this exercise because, first of all, okay, you know the pen tool, okay? Then you know the Pathfinder tool. But if complicated logos like this, it will take you like hours and hours just to like make the perfect shape, right? And now we have this, Illustrator is smart. They have this tool called Live Trace that actually helps you to really minimize your effort to actually like make it become an outline. And I think it's very useful, but sometimes it's depending on your quality, because if you scan something and the quality is not really good, the Live Trace tool of course is not perfect. So you need to adjust in something. But for this example, we're going to show you how this live trace works, and it will really enhance the speed of your design because you don't need to like really trace one by one how do you do this. And I'm going to show you how to do that.
So this is an image file of the Starbucks logo. If you click it with the black mouse tool, you can see up here that you have multiple options. One of them is image trace. So you can actually just go ahead and click that, and then it'll just tell you it might take a while. So it brings this, and then if you go back up here, change it again. So you can click View, and you want to click Tracing Result with Outlines, and then click Expand. And once you click Expand, it basically converts the whole vector into like these different segments, just like before with the shapes. Now you can go ahead and edit the vector itself. So first, we'll click on the background.
So basically now you can basically like adjust anything about this logo because now it becomes like path. You can change the color. You can change the color, probably like just change it to like blue or whatever, ugly color. But yeah, and then you can basically you can deal with all this. Make it red color.
Make it red.
Yeah.
Like red.
Anything. Okay, then now you can deal with each of this or something. Try to, yeah.
We did this earlier. It's really. Oh.
Like we can style. See, you can really manipulate a lot of logos, a lot of like, there's a lot of free resources online. You can download it, you can live trace it, you can manipulate it or something. Okay, so this is a very great tool, really quick. Okay, you don't need to draw each of them. And this is a really useful tool if you need for GAI, if you have a logo from probably an established nonprofit. So you can use it, live trace it, and then you can adjust it, adjust the color or whatever, if the company allows it. And this definitely, she's so sad. Yeah.
Yeah, again, like it really depends because if your company has a really complicated logo, like Angel had, then you might get results that you are not happy with. But for something like this, like it was already designed in a vector format and they just have it in like a JPEG or PNG image file. So you can take that and it'll be easier to use to optimize it.
Yeah, some company, sorry, Chris.
Oh, is it like, if it's a vector image, you can't really live trace it? It's a vector image?
No, so some company are not really like, they don't hire professional designers. So their logo is probably in JPEG or they use Paint or something, okay, to draw it. And that's not scalable. What I mean by scalable is you zoom in, if you put it in a billboard, it will be super pixelated. It will be like square and everything. But if you actually have like this, so you live trace the logo from a drawing or from a JPEG or whatever, you can make it vector. Vector means the image itself can be scalable into whatever size. From little size into like in a paper until like a huge billboard, it's all vector based. Okay, so you can use whatever format to do this. You can just put drag and drop JPEG image to this and everything, and live trace it, and it become a vector. Got it?
Is it easier to manipulate vector images, or?
Yeah, it is it's easier to manipulate vector because it's like a point and anchor system. So the shape is not based on the pixel, but it's based on the path. So it's based on like how like each point interact with each other, rather than just a picture.
So let me just get this straight. So you can take pretty much any JPEG image, do a live trace on it, and then it becomes a vector image, which you can then just change however you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but according to the JPEG quality, because sometimes if you don't really have like a sharp image, the path will be like kind of like curvy or whatever because it's not perfect. Then you use pen tool or you use the selection tool, the white arrow or whatever to make it smooth and everything.
Okay.
Then you can save it as a vector.
So the next thing we'll talk about is kind of the color systems that exist in Illustrator. Is everything clear so far? Like, if you have any more questions, you can feel free to ask.
Yeah, feel free. We do bite.
So colors, for basic explanation, there are two types of color modes. One is RGB, which stands for red, green, blue, and then CYMK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. I don't know why the K stands for black, but it does. CYMK, if you ever come across it, it's best for print. So for me in CFA, our printers use that ink, and so it's better to print with that. For RGB, that's more common with the web, so that you want to stay in that mode. To set that, you can go to File, Document Color Mode, and choose RGB or CYMK. And you want to make sure that you're in RGB if you're designing for the iPhone or Android, etc. Just like I showed you before, you can click here to change the color like very quickly. The front one up here is the fill, so that's the red shape that's filled with red. And then the second one behind it is stroke, which is the border. If you ever want to change them really quick, there's a swap here, so it changes everything to be a blank fill and then a red border. Let's do that. You can also add your colors to save them so it's easier to access them. So up here.
Yeah. Do you guys know what hex keys are? This thing? Okay, you guys are familiar with it? So basically each color have a code on it. Usually when you're making website or when you're like telling a client or like a client tell you. So that's how you identify color. So that you don't say like, oh, I want light blue, but what kind of blue? So that's a very useful, so like when you submit something to the client or when the client needs some color, you can ask for like, oh, what's the hex key? Or like, what's the RGB value? RGB value is like the red how many and green how many. So that's just how you identify like the color rather than words.
Yep, and then we do this actual swatches. If you go up here, you can also change your color up here. And this is again based on what tool you have selected. And I have the black mouse tool. So if you click here and you go to this little menu, this window, you can click New Swatch, and it'll allow you to save the color that you have right now, so that you can access it later on. So that's really convenient. That's basically the basic introduction to color.
Yep.
Next thing we'll do is something called text on path, which is an interesting feature that Illustrator has. And this uses the pen tool as well. So I'll just go ahead and draw a simple curve. And because the fill is changing it to red, I can switch this so now it becomes an outline. Exactly. And next I'll select the type tool, which allows you to include text. And if you just hover over the line, you can click right there and it changes that curve into something that you can type on. Minus the difference. So that can do some pretty interesting things.
So this will be useful if you need to make a text that is like circular. Usually a logo, there's like circular logo that circular like the name of the company that follows it. Like so this will be really useful because your path will be perfect, like perfect circle, whatever. Okay, so these are tools to make those kind of text, like the text that follows on shape. It's called
Type on tool.
type on.
I mean path.
Type.
Yeah. The next thing that's really important to know is, let's say you're creating like a logo with text for your team, and maybe for us it's feed. I wanted to use this as like a text-only logo, and it's helpful if you select the text that you just made and you go to type, and you do create outlines, and this changes the text to vector. So what you can do is basically scale it and shrink it, and then you can also select the individual letters and kind of do crazy things with them as well. So that's another tool with text that you can use, which is especially helpful for altering text in an interesting way. So yeah, that's no longer feed, it's some random thing.
It's very bad. Yep. So
For the example,
done.
okay, yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and try using the Pathfinder and color.
Yeah, so today we already covered like pen tool, Pathfinder, and like all the colors. And then we're just gonna show you how we're gonna like use this into practice. Okay, we're gonna do a logo. Okay, so every logo in the whole world, including that golden arch thing, so go for it.
So you can see the logo here. It's just like the arches, very well known. We'll try our best to make something similar to it. It won't be exact, but you can kind of see how the pen tool and Pathfinder works. So first, with the arches, you can kind of see that there's like an ellipse structure there. If you look over here, you can kind of see like oval shapes. So we're gonna make 2 oval shapes like that. And then
It's just copy pasting.
yeah.
Here's a lot of hotkeys.
Yeah, shortcuts come really handy. And then you can also see that it's just like an outline shape. It's not a filled arch. So we can put in 2 arches that are smaller within. Let's try this. So go ahead and do that. And then it's an M, so obviously like not everything gets cut off over here. So we'll put in a rectangle shape to cover the bottom half. We'll change the color here. Like that. So using the Pathfinder tool, we can first begin with getting the M like outline. So we don't want this blue circle to be there anymore. So we can select the first set of ellipses and then use the minus front Pathfinder tool. So that removes the front layer, which is the blue circle. And we'll do it again over here. So you get that. And then if we select both of the ellipses, we can use unite, and that'll just combine everything in one. So we have this M shape already, but we still have this, and we want to get this. So yeah, if we use the minus front again, it'll take out that front purple shape, and we'll achieve this M shape. It's not exact, but I hope that helps illustrate what you can do with the pen tool. I mean the Pathfinder tool and with the shapes.
Yeah, see, it looks easy because he did it. Okay. Basically, when he showed me just now this morning, he did it in like 30 seconds. And basically, this is how every logo starts. Okay, you can adjust it, everything. But I just want to show you that not all you don't need to be a designer to do this. You don't need to be like a professional designer just to make this. But it's simple, but it just needs practice. Like him, he knows all the hotkeys, so it's just faster, but doesn't mean that you cannot do it. Okay, it's a very easy tool. It's a very powerful engine, and it's just up to you to really explore, really train yourself and practice. As I said, there's the application in Mugar, there's application in com building, and you can just practice this all the time. So
yeah, let me know if it didn't make sense either, in case it was a little bit too fast.
So what is the hotkey for copy paste?
You press Alt, you hold Alt, and then you click on your shape and you just drag it without releasing Alt, and then you let go of the mouse.
I remember that.
It's really convenient. And then as you're learning this, Command Z is going to be your best friend. You
Yeah,
can use it so much.
Illustrator is, I don't know, the hotkeys are crazy. They have a full website just for hotkeys for Illustrator. I can't remember anything, but yeah, basically, just want to show you, this is a powerful engine.
Yeah.
And again.
So yeah, in 2 weeks you guys are going to start teaching Photoshop?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So yeah, last 2 weeks we said the introduction to Illustrator. This one is more advanced. You can make more complicated shapes. In this kind of because of these 3 tools, you can make various shapes, gears, or trees or whatever. It's very versatile. It's up to your creativity, and that's where you come in. Okay, and one more thing. Let's talk about saving. Okay. Sorry. Oh, okay.
I just want to show you, this is what you can do with Illustrator. I made these illustrations using multiple layers and the Pathfinder to get the gear. So don't worry about I don't know. It's okay to explore and see what you can do by layering shapes and stuff.
Yeah, he made this by using just pen tool, Pathfinder, and color. That's it. He really made everything. It's just how you make it. The shadows, you can just different shape with different shades, different colors, and yeah, it's really he made it until that kind of quality.
How do you switch around the layers? Or like,
If you go to Window and then you can select Layers, this window shows up, and you can see, like depending on what you have on the screen, maybe it's more helpful to go.
So the layer system is simple. The top part is like the front kind of thing, so you can like adjust the different layers. You can lock the layers if you don't want to edit it, like the lock button, so you cannot move it or whatever. So when you trace something or when you want something as reference in background, you can lock it, and that's how you manipulate different layers. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about saving.
Yeah. So when you save a file, okay, what do you save? As what format? Anything?
Word document.
So the default is .ai. Okay, so it's an Illustrator file. But when you actually save it into what, like a picture, because not everyone has Illustrator. If you submit an AI to a client, they may not be able to open it. But if you like send the AI to a printing company, probably they can do it. Okay, so the basic for vector, I think you should format it as PNG. Okay, that's the most generally used. You need to export it. Yeah, for PNG you need to export rather than save into like a PNG. What's the difference between PNG and JPEG? JPEG is like the biggest thing, right? What's the difference? You wanna know? Okay, I'm gonna explain it. Alright? Do you know?
I think PNG has no background.
Exactly. Okay, so JPEG, when you save this as a JPEG, you have a white background. Okay, so you put it in like whatever, if there's like this white background behind. If you save it as PNG, it will be transparent, it will be just the M. Alright, and it would be really useful if you put it in anything, because you don't want the background to be there. Okay, you want like just the logo itself. So the common thing to use is basically saving in PNG. For Photoshop, probably is JPEG, but for Illustrator, I'm just gonna tell you, PNG is the most useful. Okay? There are a lot of like files, but I don't think it's just different preferences and stuff, but PNG is the most general.
Yeah, just as a reminder, you go to File and then Export, and then you get the PNG option.
Yeah, and if you want to save it in Illustrator file so you can just reopen it again. Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, so for today, that's basically it. That's basically the basic Illustrator tool that we want to like teach you, and that's definitely it's just up to you how to use it. All right. So if you have any questions, remember Monday 6 to 8, MCS 148, MCS 148. Do you guys know where MCS is? You know, behind Warren. Okay, we're there 6 to 8. We're doing our work or whatever. Chat with us. We're nice guys.
Yeah.
And what else?
Yeah, just don't be afraid of the software. It's
Yeah.
scary, but don't be afraid.
Oh, if you don't want to meet us personally, you can just
Yes.
email us. I don't know. And we actually, this is our second design lecture, so we just wanted like feedback so that the next we have like in total 6 lectures, so we want to like better ourselves. So there's this lecture feedback.